This is a story of how a pastor in Saudi Arabia was sentenced to be beheaded for his newfound faith. But Jesus' miracle shook the whole city. My name is Akram. I'm 42 years old. And on March 7, 2018, I was seconds away from being executed in a public square in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The executioner's blade was raised above my neck when Jesus performed a miracle that shook an entire city. I was born into a devout Muslim family in Riyadh, where the call to prayer echoed through our neighborhood 5 times a day, and my childhood was shaped by strict Islamic teachings. My father was a respected imam at our local mosque, and I grew up believing that Islam was the only path to God. For 28 years, I lived this way, following every ritual, memorizing verses from the Quran, and never questioning the faith that had been passed down through generations of my family. Everything changed in 2010 when I discovered a small, worn Bible hidden beneath loose floorboards in an abandoned house I was renovating for work. The pages were yellowed, and some were torn, but as I began reading the words of Jesus, something stirred deep within my heart that I had never experienced before. Night after night, I would sneak back to that empty house and read by flashlight, terrified that someone might discover me with this forbidden book. The love and grace described in those pages was unlike anything I had encountered in my years of Islamic study. When Jesus spoke about laying down his life for his sheep, about loving your enemies, about forgiveness that knows no bounds, I felt as though scales were falling from my eyes. The more I read, the more I realized that this Jesus was not just a prophet as Islam taught, but something far greater. He was calling me personally, speaking directly to the emptiness I had always felt despite my religious devotion. On a cold night in December 2010, alone in that abandoned house, I fell to my knees and surrendered my life to Jesus Christ. The moment I made that decision, I knew there was no going back. In Saudi Arabia, converting from Islam to Christianity is not just socially unacceptable, it is punishable by death under Sharia law. I kept my new faith secret for months, but the transformation in my heart was impossible to hide completely. I began treating people differently, showing kindness to workers from other countries who were often looked down upon, and speaking words of hope and forgiveness that seemed foreign coming from someone raised in our strict religious culture. My father noticed the change first. He confronted me one evening after I had been reading the Bible in my room, thinking everyone was asleep. He had seen the light under my door and wondered why I was awake so late. When he discovered the Bible in my possession, his face turned pale with horror and rage. He demanded I renounce this foreign religion immediately and return to proper Islamic practice. I looked into his eyes, the same eyes that had taught me to pray as a child, and told him with trembling but determined voice, I cannot deny Jesus Christ. That night changed everything between us. My father threw me out of our family home, declaring that I was no longer his son, and forbidding my mother and siblings from having any contact with me. The man who had held me as a baby, who had taught me to ride a bicycle and helped me with my homework, now looked at me as though I were a stranger, or worse, an enemy. The pain of that rejection cut deeper than any physical wound could have. But even in that moment, I felt the peace of Christ sustaining me. I spent the next several years working construction jobs and living in small rented rooms, but I was not alone in my faith for long. Through careful inquiry and much prayer, I began to discover that there were other secret believers scattered throughout Riyadh. We would meet in basements, in desert locations outside the city, and in the back rooms of shops owned by sympathetic Christians from other countries who worked in Saudi Arabia. These gatherings were small, never more than 8 people at a time. But the fellowship was unlike anything I had experienced. Over the course of 8 years, from 2010 to 2018, I watched our underground network grow from a handful of frightened believers to 47 committed Christians meeting in groups across the city. God began using me to lead these secret congregations. And I found myself pastoring people who had also risked everything to follow Jesus. I baptized new converts in hidden locations, performed Christian weddings in secret ceremonies, and provided biblical counseling to believers struggling under the weight of persecution and family rejection. Every week brought new challenges and dangers. We developed elaborate systems of coded communication, changed meeting locations frequently, and lived with the constant awareness that discovery meant imprisonment, torture, or death. I trained other leaders in biblical studies, teaching them from smuggled copies of scripture and from memory when physical books were too dangerous to possess. We distributed Christian literature through carefully constructed networks, passing materials hand to hand like an underground resistance movement. The government's surveillance of religious activities increased steadily during those years. 3 times our meetings were almost discovered by religious police, and each near miss reminded us that we were playing a deadly game. Fellow believers began disappearing without explanation. Some were arrested and imprisoned. Others simply vanished, and their families were left wondering if they were alive or dead. The pressure was constant and suffocating. But it also purified our faith in ways that comfortable Christianity never could. Every Sunday, as I looked into the faces of my congregation, I wondered if this would be our last gathering. Would today be the day that religious police burst through the doors? Would one of us betray the others under torture? Would I have the courage to stand firm if they came for me? These questions haunted every prayer, every sermon, every communion service we shared in hidden rooms throughout the city. Have you ever risked your life for something you believed in? I mean, truly everything you hold dear, everything that gives your life meaning and purpose. Most people in free countries cannot imagine what it means to worship under the constant threat of death, to love Jesus knowing that this love could cost you your family, your livelihood, and ultimately your life. But I want you to understand that in that danger, in that daily choice to follow Christ despite the cost, we found a depth of faith and joy that I believe many comfortable Christians never experience. The betrayal came from someone I trusted completely. Brother Ahmed had been attending our underground meetings for 2 years, and I had personally baptized his teenage daughter in a secret ceremony held in the desert outside Riyadh. He was a quiet man who worked as an accountant for a government ministry, and his questions during our Bible study showed a genuine hunger for understanding God's Word. I had welcomed him into my inner circle of trusted leaders, sharing with him the locations of our various meeting places and the names of our most committed believers. What I didn't know was that Brother Ahmed had been working with the religious police for months, carefully documenting our activities and gathering evidence that would later be used to destroy our entire network. He had been carrying a hidden recording device to our worship services, capturing my sermons and the testimonies of new converts. He photographed our communion services, our baptisms, and our prayer meetings. Every act of worship, every expression of faith, every vulnerable moment when believers shared their struggles was being recorded and reported to authorities who were building a case against us.